Lovers Quarrel. It's a long, sustained quarrel.
What's going on, world?
Hey, everybody.
It's your guy, TJ, Mr. New Cool.
And it's your girl, Dani, your well-rested werewolf.
It's been a while since we've done that.
A very long time.
OD long.
That's what happens. That's why we're here, to give the people an explanation, a recap, an update.
A recap?
All of the above.
I got you. What's going on, world?
Welcome.
I missed that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I know.
I had to,
Say it again. Run it back.
Yeah, I miss doing this. I miss being able to converse with you.
Yes. Well, let's save that
on a podcast format. But go ahead.
Yes. Welcome to a new episode of Lovers Quarrel.
All right, I'm about to stop you there. So we're gonna quarrel early. It's not really a new episode. It's kind of like a prelude, or
Okay.
it's something special.
All right. I'll take that. But welcome to Lovers Quarrel. You got lovers who quarrel. You got Dani. You got TJ. We here. So, and actually, when we're talking about where are we? We are in
Vegas.
Vegas, baby.
That's why this view looks the way that it looks and everything, So,
we're
the why.
Yes.
So when this drops, it would be officially 20 years that Dani and I have been together.
Wild.
On 7/27 of 2004, me and Dani, I asked Dani to be my girlfriend, and then she wanted to be a slide.
See, this is why
So she wanted
you
to be,
really just jumping right back out the...
I'm just being honest with our people. The people know me to be transparent and open and honest, right?
They know you to be an exaggerator.
So again, on 7/27 of 2004, Dani came to my house after school. I think she came after work, or maybe she lied about going to work, or something along those lines. But whatever, Dani was at my house.
On the phone.
No. See, that's the second part.
Okay, go ahead.
We met up that day. I asked you to be my girlfriend, and you was like, I want to be friends with benefits.
I was basically my way of saying, like, let's just date.
You don't remember? Yeah.
Continue.
See, dating now is different than back then. See, back then, dating meant boyfriend and girlfriend. That's how I took it. So when I hear the term now, like dating, but now dating just means that you're casually messing with somebody, but there's no attachment. But I'm an old soul. So yeah, asked her to be my girlfriend. She said she wanted to be friends with benefits. I was like, at the moment, I was cool with it. And then later that night, I called her and I told her that she was either gonna be my girlfriend or not.
And I said,
and she was like, oh,
okay.
Nah, that's not. See, you're forgetting things. I know you're older than me, so dementia can hit early and all that other stuff. But she was definitely like smitten when I was like I took charge, and I was like, nah, you're either gonna be my girlfriend or you're not gonna be nothing.
And I said, okay. I said, I'll be your girlfriend.
And then now, 20 years later.
20 years later.
So we decided to come celebrate that milestone in Vegas. Vegas was probably one of the places that we visited throughout our time together,
Early in our relationship.
Yeah, we weren't traveling the world yet or anything like that, but Vegas was a big deal. So I thought it was right that we can come back to Vegas. Plus, we're going to be doing a sneaker customization class
tomorrow
that I've been wanting to do for some time. So it was like perfect timing. Let's go to Vegas. Let's turn off our phones. Let's not be in work mode. Let's not be parents. Let's just be Dani and TJ. So
yes, putting down all the other hats and roles that we fulfill. But yeah, so that's why we're here. It's still wild to say like 20 years, like literally known each other and been in each other's lives now way over more than half our lives, which is like still wild to me. Especially given that, we're not even 40, right? Like, so it just really is like we've grown up together. But, TJ had this idea of us like recording while we're here, in part too because we are away from all of the things that kind of occupy us and our responsibilities. And so this would be a great opportunity for us to try and really like get back in the fold, hopefully. And more than anything, and if nothing else, give you all an update on the whys and us and what's been going on for us, and
for those who still care.
Yeah, you know. So
I mean, we're dinosaurs now.
Exactly, especially in the podcast world. Like everybody got a microphone. Everybody got going viral. Everybody, you know, we know. We're just out here, you know, trying to finish something that we started or start a new chapter of something of the same book. You know, take it or leave it. So. If you remember the old format, that's not what this is going to be right now. And also, we're just going to, again, give you that recap and update. So let's just get right into it. Why we stopped. So for those of you who were rocking with us back in, you know, the, you know, couple of years that we were doing it, in top of 2021, I found out I was pregnant with our second child, our son, Trey, our beautiful baby boy. And I would be lying if I was like, oh, it was perfect, great, you know, happy and everything else like that. No, I was struggling in the beginning. It was like I was exhausted. I felt really cruddy during that first trimester. And I just wanted to take a break. I wanted to just like...
But your first trimester, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to quarrel with you. Your first trimester had nothing to do with when we stopped. You stopped because you gave birth to Trey. And then we just never came back.
Well, yeah, we officially, like that. We scaled it. Okay, so it's been a while. So
our last episode was on August 3rd. We had Trey in September 28th. Yeah.
Yes, remember your son's birthday.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just got to remember dates and stuff like that. Numbers and all other stuff. But
it was hard. It was hard for me.
Dani out here skating right now and trying to find the perfect answer. It is what it is.
I'm also just trying to recount my memory. But
that dementia I was talking about. Exactly. So, you know,
you make me
we had the baby.
So fucking tired.
My guy Trey, Terrence III.
Beautiful baby boy.
And after we had Trey, life got busier again. Because you got to remember, COVID happened. So we were kind of coming out of COVID. And then everything else that came along with it, I got busier at work. Dani got busier, and then, you know, that became the focus. And, you know, the plan was to, you know, come back
top of the new year.
In the next year. Well, she's going to say top of the new year. I thought we were going to come back like the following year.
Yeah, I mean like 2022.
Yeah, but like, top of the new year means January.
Okay.
We're talking. I'm saying I didn't envision us coming back that early because I don't think we came back that early with Tatum.
Okay, I could be wrong again. So basically, though, we plan to come back is what we're getting at.
And then life happened.
And continues to happen because we're adjusting with life with two kids, and also like TJ saying, like work responsibilities are ramping up. You know, TJ was growing, thriving at, you know, his job, and it required a lot more from him, which then also meant that I was taking a more forefront of a more dominant role in like the household and the family management, and, you know, still working full time as well. And that work-life balance really started to, you know, I think it definitely, work-life balance impacted both of us, but I will say that, and I'll take accountability for saying that, like,
accountability. Go ahead. Let me hear this accountability. For
like not, I mean, I still stand. I don't feel like we had the capacity. I know I didn't have the capacity to like add.
Thank you for switching that. You didn't have the capacity.
Okay, and for adding yet another thing, and that's what podcasting felt like. It was like another thing, and I didn't have the capacity for it, and it was, you know, a time where I was, you know, still trying to figure out my place at work. You know, I've switched roles, offices recently in like the spring of this year, and not, you know, for the 4 years in my last role that I was in, I definitely learned a whole lot. I grew a whole lot, but it was hard. I was a one-man team. I was kind of like isolated and alone a lot of the time, you know, having to figure things out on my own, having to kind of like leverage my relationship. So it forced me to have to grow and push myself in areas that I wasn't always comfortable in, but it was also still nevertheless, you know, stressful. And then, you know, coming home and you got, you know, Tatum started pre-K in 2021, and so now we've got a school-age child. Then, you know, we're talking about like further in the year after Trey's first birthday, you're talking about like daycare, you're talking about, I went back into the office in 2022, excuse me. So a lot of different things going up, and it just, I know I didn't have it in me to balance it, and I also, you know, didn't want to commit to something that I wasn't ready to commit to, and then, you know, sell TJ a dream, and then we don't fall through on it, and now's another reason for him to be annoyed with me or be upset with me, or be like, you know, I'm not keeping my word, or, you know, because a lot of times it was always like, oh, everything falls on, you know, whenever ready when you are, whenever, you know, it's all on you, and this, that, and the other.
Listen, it is. I'm waiting on you. Go ahead.
Yeah, you're waiting on me, but it was, yes, you were waiting on me, or that, you know, because you still wanted to do this, that, and the other. But I don't think that you didn't. I don't think it was. I know I didn't have it in me at the time, and I don't. But I also, but simultaneously, I don't think that it would have been a good experience for us had we were trying to do it and then it was inconsistent or was whatever else.
Well, I don't think it would have been fair to those who listen to Lovers Quarrels or list, like, are following us, and, you know, and I think that's the major thing, at least for me, right? If we're not going to do it to our full capacity, then it doesn't make sense to do it. And therefore, we've been on ice since August of 2021. So going on 3 years, but you know, throughout that, you know, we've gone through things, we've grown, we've had terrible times, we've had amazing times, we got to see our children grow, we got to grow professionally, we got to grow individually, you know, so, you know, during that time, there's a lot that has changed, and that was another reason why I thought that it would be perfect with us celebrating 20 years, but to kind of get y'all back up to speed on what's been going on, what's new with us, what's changed with us, what's Dani TJ's been, and, you know, hopefully try to get the show back on, you know what I mean?
Hopefully, yeah. And
hopefully her agent is listening, and, you know, I can send them the contract negotiations, and we can get her back on. The
cool thing about us recording this, you know, having the video components, whatever, I'm like, I know y'all are seeing me roll my eyes. I hope y'all are seeing me roll my eyes, because he just, what has not changed is that TJ still be saying and whatever out his mouth. But
I never said whatever. I'm just a consistent, transparent person.
A consistent, transparent asshole. Yes.
Sometimes I've been called an asshole.
Yes.
You was about to say a lot. Go ahead. A lot of times people don't call me assholes. Okay. Well, if they do, they say it behind my back. So, and I'm okay with that.
I tell you to your face.
Sometimes.
But, well, if you're not there, I can't tell you to your face. So, you know, I think
you can text it.
I'm just gonna randomly be like, "Fuck you, asshole."
I gotta say fuck you. You could just be like asshole.
Like asshole, like just you're an asshole. Just so we're clear, you're an asshole.
I mean, I'm just saying. Anyway, go ahead. Continue.
Right. But, you know, so like we said, I'm feeling isolated, overwhelmed. TJ's also like, he's working a lot and he's traveling for work. And I think that that toll that it took on us as a unit, as a label, as a marriage, as a family, was something that we still were like ironing out the kinks, where, you know, for example, like the month, like March and April, especially like most of March, like TJ's sticking and moving. He's in and out because that's like a really busy time of year. It's when the different regions have their conventions and he has to be present at all of them, which means it's also like, you know, we've gotten accustomed to our anniversary, his birthday is sometimes like a little hit or miss.
100%.
A little hit or miss on like how we celebrate or how we go about it, because he may or may not even be in the state with me, right? So that, you know, that plays a role. And then the demands of his job sometimes impacted and influenced our relationship and our abilities to connect. And also, even, you know, and I know I'll speak for myself in that, you know, how are we going to do this in addition to like all of the like responsibilities that we had, and especially like if we weren't in a good space with each other at times, you know, do we even want to? Or I'll speak for myself, do I even want to? Because it's like, I don't want to have another like opportunity for us to be like quarreling, right? Yes, TJ.
I forgot.
Calling on you.
Sorry, because you said something and I wanted to get on it, but you know.
Finish my thought.
You kept on going.
I finished my thought.
You be long-winded, you know what I mean? You be like, you can get straight to the point.
All right, you got the memory of a goldfish, my nigga, so.
That's fair.
Here we are.
Blame my ADHD.
I do.
So.
All right.
So then you should be able to understand that.
So what it also meant is that in general, podcasts aside, like TJ kind of hinted to, we had ups and downs in our marriage, right? Like
and I think that plays into why the podcasting wouldn't work, because I'm trying to remember it, so please forgive me.
It's okay.
If I say it wrong,
Take your
but
time.
you stated that you weren't sure if you wanted to do it and stuff like that. And I think that's one of our issues in our marriage a lot of times, that Danielle doesn't communicate, at least for me. Because Danielle is looking for the perfect way of saying something, or she doesn't want to say something because there may be an argument or whatever. Whereas TJ is like, I'd rather you just say it. I may be upset about it, I may be angry, I may be whatever, but at least I know what it is. Whereas Danielle would be like, we'll record again, or, you know, I'm thinking about it, and, you know, shout out to my wife, because I am a dreamer. You know, I'm a big dreamer. I have 1,000,001 thoughts. I have 1,000,001 ideas, and I don't know how I'm going to get it done, but I know that I want to do it, right? And sometimes my wife is very supportive, and sometimes she's too supportive to a fault. Sometimes she needs to, like, you know, tell me, like, how, right? Because, again, those are the things. Just like she said, when I am traveling a lot, how are we going to record, or how are we going to do that? If you ask me, I'm going to be like, we find a schedule, right? But it's about finding those things. But during this 3-year time, I would say that we've grown more mature, and I'll take a page from Danny's book. I grew more, right? I had to start understanding my perception, how people perceived me, how my family perceived me, how my wife perceived me, based off of the things I've said, done throughout the years, right? So a lot of times, that was, when Danielle, like when I was joking about, well, not joking, people do think I'm an asshole at times, right? And I think I just say what I feel, but I've also learned that you can't just say what you feel, right? It's a way to say things. It's a way to do things, and I think those are the things that I've had to learn and grow. And yeah, it's been a tough time. There was times that we didn't think that we would make it. At least I didn't think we was gonna make it.
No, me too.
And we prevailed. So again, 20 years of dating, 11 years married, high school sweethearts, and we grew up together, and we grew up with the ideology of what our parents taught us, as well as our own ideology of what we thought a good marriage was, or how a husband and wife are supposed to interact based off of the things that we saw. And I think we're in a space now where it's like you use those things as reference points, but and again, I'm speaking for myself. For me, our marriage is our marriage. So what works for us may not work for another couple. It may not work for other people. but it works for us. And every relationship is different, and every relationship is different. Everything is different. So, you know, I think the major thing for us was just growing and being able to, you know, for me, empower Dani to be able to feel comfortable enough to say the things. I've always said it, but my actions may have not showed that she felt safe or comfortable to be able to do these things or say these things. And, you know, I got to take ownership on that. So, I would say that it was tough. It was definitely tough. And, you know, as I've always been, I always want to be super transparent with y'all because, you know, with us being high school sweethearts, people love it. Oh my God, it's so sweet. I wish I can have it. And
Aww.
we've always said, like, you know, this wasn't the plan. You know, I didn't know that 20 years ago I was going to find my wife, my baby mother, my best friend. Like, you know, again, I was a child and it was just, the stars align. But even with that, as you grow, we had to be able to find that commonality and grow with each other and understand. And that's kind of the thing, at least for me. Again, I'm going to speak for my Lynn. Dani may have a different view on it. But for me, it was like I wanted to grow. And then when I started realizing that, like, some of the traits that I learned as a child was kind of toxic or not conducive for our relationship, then it was like, okay, you know, I wanted to change. And I'm a big believer that change only happens when somebody wants it, right? So when you hear this audio, when you watch the video, it's gonna be a little bit of break. I was going in about our marriage and
flowing.
It's been difficult and everything, and then our camera said it was too hot and shut off. So I'm going to try to pick up the same magic. It may not sound the same. It may be all over the place. It may be like, wait, I just heard this, but I'm going to land the plane. You know, I'm going to do what my wife doesn't know how to do well. So ultimately, these last 3 years have been very difficult, but it's been very rewarding growing, right? I think I've found a new way to love my wife. I found a new way to, you know, prioritize my life. I was really, you know, going 100 miles per hour, working and everything else. And I would say that I took for granted my wife, my family, and everything else, right? It's easy just to be like go mode. And again, me knowing my wife, and I feel comfortable being able to say this now, but you know, Dani doesn't like confrontations. She's going to try to find the best way to make sure that everyone is happy, and sometimes that means she got to sacrifice herself. She will. But like I've always told her, but you know, I think I've been able to show her more, like, you don't have to sacrifice. You don't have to do these things. Like, it's a courtesy, absolutely, but you know, we're all living our lives. We're all trying to figure things out. And, you know, I would say that's probably one of the greatest things that I've learned about, like, relationships, a marriage, friendships, right? We're all going through different things. And I'll use a marriage, for example. I'm TJ, she's Dani. We have our own shit going on in our lives. And then we're bringing our lives together. And then now we got to try to fix that. And then you throw kids into the mix, and then you throw being an adult, you throw just everyday struggles, things that you know, sometimes we take for granted, or things that may have been an issue, but you glossed over it, or you never really focused on it, and then it comes back later. So I'm going to say, for me, these last 3 years have been transformative for me to be able to, you know, be a better person, appreciate the sacrifice that my wife makes. Because again, I do travel in the spring a lot. My job does require me to travel a lot, and the sacrifice that my wife makes, and, you know, it's easy to take that for granted. My supervisor, he always takes the first plane out. And when I asked him why, he said, my wife makes the sacrifice for me and my family, for me to travel, for me to do this job. So it's only right that I get back to her, so that way if I get back on a Sunday, I get back Sunday morning and we can spend a day together. Or if I get back whatever day, I can spend time with her because she makes those sacrifices. And that's when it kind of hit me. Like, oh, okay, I see that. I did one, what is it called? Red eye?
Red eye, yeah.
I did a 5 a.m.
Red bird.
a couple of weeks ago. And I had to go to a chapter centennial event. Centennial for fraternities or sororities means that you've celebrated 100 years. I had to go to their event. It was Father's Day weekend, and I took the first thing smoking. And that whole day, I got back early. I got back before anyone woke up, and I was like, "Oh, this is dope," but I was tired the whole day. So I think next time I'm gonna be a little bit more mindful of that. But previously, I'd be like, "Oh, let me get the late flight. I got gold status at the hotel, so I get late checkout. Oh, I'm going to stay extra." But speaking with him and being able to see that and understanding and speaking with my wife and speaking with my family and just looking at the landscape, it was like, okay, it's okay to make these sacrifices because they make the sacrifices, So that was long-winded. It was all over the place, but we also got cut, so.
I think, too, I think a little bit too over these last couple of years too. Like when you first started working there, like I think you always will enjoy having like travel be a aspect of your roles and responsibilities, like in your career and in your responsibilities. But I think some of the like novelty you've spoken about that has worn off a bit of like the kind of like having to constantly be on the go and coming back and like the back and forth. And I really do appreciate that you've. The way you describe those things and kind of like the growth and the evolution you had to kind of go through to come to understanding, because a lot of the times it was especially like once we had 2 kids, right, and like and now our eldest is in school, and so it's the coordination of efforts, and I didn't always speak about what exactly all of that took. And granted, like TJ and I always on the same spectrum, but always like often at opposite ends of it about how we handle things sometimes, at least like in our like I joke and call it like our like factory settings, right? Like the way we come, like without any like reflection or self-awareness or effort or anything like that, we kind of live at opposite ends of the spectrum. But saying that all to say is that I think that it took time for me to convey and for him to understand, and for him to also like take the time to look around like all that was happening at home in his absence too, and the toll that it was taking, because you're talking like, all right, pickups and drop-offs, and I'm and work and like getting bath time and bed. It's one thing that they don't ever tell you in like parenthood, especially like once you get past the like infant and newborn infant, maybe even toddler stage or whatever, it's like a lot of the day-to-day stuff is boring as fuck. It's boring as shit. It's monotonous. And it's not that it's like I would never, like, that doesn't mean I don't love being a mother. I don't love parenthood. But it also means that it just keeps, it's the same thing day in, day out. And then sometimes, it would, and like we joke about TJ's like having ADHD, and here and there, whatever. But sometimes it would be like we were having these struggles because the struggle was coming in is that sometimes it felt like even when he finally got back, it felt like there was not like a reprieve. I wasn't getting this like weight lifted off my shoulders. And it was like because he was still so much having to be in go mode for work. And yeah, you back from a trip and now you got to jump on a call, or somebody's calling you, there's a fire you got to put out, and that comes to him. He's being in leadership, and he's amazing at what he does. But it was taking a toll. I wasn't speaking on things, and I also
say that again.
I wasn't speaking on things. I know, but I did not always feel emotionally safe enough to have those conversations. And then also sometimes it felt like it was hard to like have whole court with you because he was so busy. However, and in the sense,
I hate when you say that,
but it's how I felt. I'm not saying it was always true, but it's just how I felt.
I get that, and I'm always gonna respect that. But for me, it's like you didn't give me the opportunity.
And that's fair too.
You made an assumption based off of me saying I'm busy or whatever. But again, I there's never been a time that you've said that you needed to speak to me and I didn't make the time. It's never been that. And I think that's where, again, the communication is so important. And,
absolutely.
You know, because again, if I come home and you're handling the stuff, you're not asking for help or you're not doing whatever, yeah, I may have just come home and I'm tired, so I'm sleeping. But, you know, you're not saying I'm tired, so hey, when you come home, like, we're not having these conversations. So then Danielle's angry at me, and I don't know why she's angry, but I notice she's angry because I know her, but she doesn't think I know her, so she's saying or doing things, and then that would cause friction and attitudes and fights and stuff like that.
Lack of intimacy. Things like that, and that was a big touch, you know, a big part of our, you know, some point of contention too. But so something I will say, like, you know, you've been really like transparent and vulnerable right now about the things that you had to kind of work through. And so besides me having like this like open lines of communication with TJ, regardless of my concerns about like the outcome, because he, you know, because of like not being concerned about what type of reaction I'm going to get if I bring something up that may not be ideal or may not be pleasant. Something that I mean, we'll probably still, it has to have to still continue to work on, like, I'm not like 1,000% healed from, is it was getting to a point where over, now we're at 20 years, right? So let's say since from like 17 years to 20 years or whatever, where I was feeling this like sense of like resignation, right? Like, I spent so long with this man and I let so many things go by and slide that I didn't like or I didn't agree with or I didn't make me feel good, but you know, because I was trying to show grace or because I was trying to avoid conflict, that I didn't speak on it. And there absolutely have been things that I should have put a hard stop on, some things, right? Or I should have, you know, established a boundary a lot sooner, or had a conversation with him to talk about how maybe something he said or did made me feel, or so I didn't, you know, I just should have communicated more effectively. And so there was a lot of moments in the last, you know, during our hiatus where I felt like this was the life. I didn't nip things in the bud essentially earlier in our relationship. So I've made my bed, so now I got to lie in it.
What would you have nipped in the bud though?
I mean,
I don't like the term, like,
okay,
nip in the bud, but
I mean, I'm okay. So I'm I know. So what I'm saying, like, so instead of saying nipped in the bud, there are things that I left unaddressed or unchecked for a really long time.
But checked.
I'm not trying to talk about like check you, but like I'm saying,
as you would say, words mean things.
Okay, so I'll stick with just unaddressed.
I'm asking for clarity.
So some things like unaddressed, like having conversation, whatever, and saying like, this is how something made me feel. There probably were times, I'm sure, like with both of us, where there were probably things that we said or did that were like foul or fucked up to the other person that and I'm speaking for myself, where like I should have said like, you know, that's not okay, or I don't like that, or something like that. Sure. And that's what I mean. Sorry, but
I'm making sure that my mic is.
Yeah. You see, like this is new for us. These little like.
So like everything that can happen, you know, anything that can happen can happen. So listen, this video is gonna have a whole bunch of cuts and edits, but you know what? That's gonna challenge me and Dani to have to get our editing skills up.
That's Murphy's Law. To
make sure that everything matches up and flows. Because we've been rocking and rolling, and you know, my microphone went to a solid red or a red color. I don't know what it means. But I'm gonna take accountability on this part, right? I got this stuff. Today was the first time that I've put everything together, tested it out, all that other stuff, right? So, learning lessons, right? I'm glad this is not a normal episode, and you know, you get to see the personality of Dani and I, and this is one of the major things that I would say that a lot of people requested. You know, they wanted to see the video, and you know, with the changing of just the voice to now being able to see, you know, your hosts and how they interact, and there's facial expressions and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to change with the times, even though we have not been podcasting for quite some time. We see and are very much still involved in the space. So thank y'all for your patience on this and allowing us to try to recreate what we had in the past.
Fair enough.
In a new time.
That part, we understand that the landscape of podcasting has changed a lot over the last couple of years, and we will always remain true to who we are and to the Lovers Quarrel brand and, what our show is about. But also, we gotta get up with the times. But I think the last thing I was kind of touching on before we had some technical difficulties was around just like the feelings of resignation I had. Like, I went so long without speaking on certain things, sharing my thoughts and opinions on stuff, because I am conflict avoidant, because sometimes TJ hasn't always had like the best reactions or responses, what he kind of touched on earlier about like the way in which he comes across, even if it's not his intention. And, I had this feeling like, well, at this point, like what room do I have to complain or to say anything if I've been allowing or haven't spoken on anything for all this time, for however much time it has, and it all just depends on what's going on. And then also too, like, I just didn't always, feel like it was, I didn't always necessarily have faith that anything was going to change. Now, with that being said, like, the things that TJ talked about, the things that I talked about, it was, a perfect storm for marital struggles, for, do we continue on? Do we go our separate ways? Do we, how do we make this work? What do we do? There was a lot of hard conversations. There were tears. There were, there were times when we were just dead ass not fucking with each other. But then,
yeah, I didn't think year 20 was going to happen.
There were times,
if I'm being honest.
There were times where I was very unsure too.
Sorry.
You're still yellow. You good?
No.
Oh, okay. My bad. And another reason for me at that time too was like, we are having enough trouble as it is. And then adding the layer of like an expectation of like a podcast schedule and all the stuff like that. I'll speak for myself. For me, it just seemed like it was another like opportunity for us to be at odds.
If we had the podcast, then we would have been good, because we've been going through whatever in front of everybody and all that other stuff.
And see, that possibly, but then that's the thing that also like sometimes gave me like hesitancy about coming back to Lovers Quarrel too, because sometimes you and I have very like different opinions on the future of Lovers Quarrel. Like for me, I'm not gonna hold you. There were times where I'm like, it was a season and a reason, but we that's not for us, and we're gonna move on, and it is what it is. And there were times where TJ was like, I still want to do it. Maybe I'll find, I'll pivot and I'll do something with somebody else, or I'll do something by myself or whatever. Like, because he wanted to miss it and bring it back. There were times we were trying to figure something out where like we could outsource some of the editing, all the stuff.
The workload that comes
with it, because we already got mad shit going on.
Danny's always going to try to make things sound pretty. And again, as you said, we're on two different spectrums. It is what it is, right? Podcasting is like another job.
Facts.
And then you add a marriage, and then you add being parents, then you add being individuals, then you add work, and you add everything else, and then it becomes a lot. It can become a lot, right? And I think that's the thing. But a lot of times, and just from my view, a lot of times we don't communicate that. We don't communicate these things. We don't have the real conversations and stuff like that. Or we try to have the conversations the way that we think that will best benefit. Especially with my wife, she is avoidant of she's conflict avoidant, right? Mm-hmm. That's what you said. And Danny's not going to have conflicts, or if she can. And for me, I grew up where conflicts is normal. Like, there's going to be, you have an opinion, I have an opinion. Now let's find a common ground, or we can agree to disagree. And that's how I always kind of wanted to approach. Now, what I will say is that even though I made it difficult for Danny to feel comfortable, I will say that I felt confident that I've always, and I still do it to this day. I've always made it where like, tell me how you feel. Like, it is what it is. You know, when Danielle would say she don't want to argue, I'm like, well, if we're going to argue anyway, we might as well. Like, I'd rather us argue and you get to say what you feel, like how you truly feel, than us arguing. It's me telling you how I truly feel, and you're still trying to figure out a way to say it in a way that you think will be a less blow, but then you really didn't, you know what I mean? Like, your feelings are your feelings. And, you know, I'm a big believer that in friendships, relationships, any type of ship, we should be able to be honest and open with each other, right? And if I hurt your feelings, you should be able to say, TJ, you hurt my feelings. And then I may say why or how. But again, my intention wasn't to hurt your feelings, and I'm going to apologize. And I think that's the difference. Again, with work and me being a supervisor, I had to learn my staff and I had to learn people. And even during that, I've learned, like, you know, when managing people, relationships, all these things, communication is key, but you got to know your partner, right? So again, I have to understand that my wife isn't somebody who wants to have arguments. Not saying that she can't do it, but it's draining for her. It's a lot for her. And, you know, in her family, they didn't really do that. And in my family, like,
all the time,
they argue to say hi, right? So it's just a differences of how we were raised. And that's what I kind of touched on earlier. But what I kind of learned from it was that I had to learn Dani, and, you know, I had to reassure her that it's okay for her to be herself. I mean, Dani touched on something earlier, and she said that she didn't feel like she had the space because she allowed for it. And I've always told her that, you know, yeah, you may have allowed for me to, you may have not put a boundary in the first 10, 15 years, but the next 5 years you can. Like, once someone knows better, they can do better. And that just goes with any and everything, at least for me. That's how I look at it. Mm-hmm. I'm very much simple. I'm black and white with a little bit of gray. Preferably, but I really don't like gray. Like, if it's yes, it's yes. If it's no, it's no. But even again, growing and learning, you know, sometimes things aren't black and white. Sometimes things are gray. So now, what's the solution? What's the resolution? How do you figure it out? And for me and Dani, you know, we got into an argument, and she made mention of us, like, not being together. And I was kind of like, all right, cool. Like, so what does that look like, right? And for me, I felt like it was kind of like a bluff. After I'm looking at it, it was something that she was feeling in the moment, and she said it. But again, that is why also I can understand why she may not always say how she feels, right? Because she said how she felt in the moment, and that may have not been, but what came from it was, all right, well, if you're not happy here, let's figure it out. And then our next couple of conversations was like, all right, so what does this look like? And then they never found what that looked like. And for me, you know, it wasn't that I wanted to be single or I didn't want to be married, but I love Dani enough that if she's not happy with me, she's not going to be happy with me. Like, we only get one life, right? I'm a big believer of that. We only get one life, so we should be able to live it to the fullest in the way that we want. And if she's not going to be able to live her life to the fullest with me, I'd rather see her go. And that was my message. That's still my message. And for some people, that might be like brazen, or, you know, you're gambling or anything like that. But again, we only get one life. And Dani is my best friend. She's my friend. She's my lover. She's my everything, right? So again, if she's not happy with me, if she's not going to be able to be the best with me, selflessly, I'd rather see her go. I don't think it's fair that I keep her. And, you know, I know that, you know, in our families and our family dynamic, that's, you know, people stayed because of the kids and stuff like that. I don't want Tatum and Trey to grow up thinking that being miserable is okay. Right. And I'm a big believer that, and then again, because I manage people, I have women staff and they're single mothers. I learned a lot from them. I learned a lot just to kind of see them. Like, I've seen my wife, I knew who my wife was, but just to see other women and kind of seeing like they're doing the same thing that Dani's doing without a partner. Dani has a partner, and he is not as reflective. I'm not as reflective. I'm not there. I'm very much like, hey, if you need me, let me know. But if you don't say nothing, then I'm gonna go do other things. And that's how my mindset works. But seeing my women staff who are single mothers and they're doing everything, it made me be like, damn, Jane does a lot, right? So again, I'm a person who observe and I try to learn and grow from those things. But yeah, it was really tough. It was tough, and you know, there was a process that we may have not been together. And I'll always say it the same way. Like, I would hate to lose her, but I'd rather see Dani be happy with somebody else. She hates when I say that. Or by herself. Like, I'd rather see her thrive and live life, right? Because again, she's raising our kids, right? And I'm a firm believer that, you know, if the mother's unhappy, the kids are going to be unhappy. I need my kids to be right. So the selfless thing for me is, all right, if this isn't going to work for you, then, you know, let's look what this is. And again, that's not my plan. Again, I don't want to have to grow up separately from Tatum and Trey. I don't want to have to split weekends. I don't want to have to do those things. But if that was what was needed for Dani's happiness, so that way it can thrive for my children, I would make that sacrifice every day. And again, I think those are the things. But again, going through that situation, I have a greater respect for like people who can co-parent, right? Because again, co-parenting is about the child. And what I will always say is that with me and Dani, we've always stated like, I've always stated with her, like, me and you can hate each other, right? But we got to be best friends for them kids. Our kids don't need to see that mommy and daddy don't like each other, or they don't speak to each other, or I can't invite them, or, you know what, mommy and daddy don't speak with each other, so I'm going to manipulate them. Like, we got to be on the same page always for those kids. And I think that, you know, in growing, I see that a lot of times parents aren't mature enough. Right? They're still hurting. And until they communicate and figure out why they're hurting, it's just going to be like, well, how can I hurt you? But
definitely,
you know, for me, for me, it was just like, you know, this was tough. Like, speaking with my friends, speaking with my mother, speaking with, you know, people about what I was feeling, what I was going through. And again, for me, you can't do that with everybody. So you got to make sure that whoever you're speaking to are people who aren't going to judge your significant other or look at something differently, but also who knows you, right? Because my friends know me. So they know, like, you said, what, TJ? Yeah, you were wrong, right? And they're not afraid to tell me that. And I think that's very important. Like, make sure you don't have yes men around you. Make sure you don't have people who's going to tell you what you want, or they think that a friendship means that I'm going to be your yes man, or I'm gonna say this. I don't believe it, but I'm gonna say it because that's what you need to hear. Nah, tell me exactly what it is. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And, you know, I pride myself on that. Like, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. Show me where I'm wrong. And if I am, I'll take accountability. If you felt like I hurt your feelings and that wasn't my intentions, I'm gonna apologize every time.
Yeah. Because
at the end of the day, that wasn't my intentions. Now, if my intentions was to hurt your feelings, then I'll tell you, kick rocks, beat it. Right. But that's not the case. But again, I grew up where my parents argued. Right. And I just thought that was normal. Or they'll go at each other. You know, someone said something smart. Someone said something else. So it was like a contest. But then I also seen them. They may have been beefing on Monday, and on Wednesday, they're laughing and joking again, right? So for me, that was just like normal. Like, arguing is normal, right? But then you go through things and you have a partner and it's like, nah, I'm not liking this. I'm not rocking with this, right? So now it made me have to change, right? It made me have to look at things differently. But I wanted to look at things differently. Like I said, I saw my parents argue a lot. But I never saw like the resolution. I never saw those things. So I made it a thing where for me and Dani, like, if we're going to argue, let's try not to do it in front of the kids. But if we do it in front of the kids, then let's also communicate to them and show them that, yeah, we were beefing about this, but we're good now, right? But it's those things. I don't want my child thinking like, daddy, if daddy's yelling at mommy, that's normal. So now I'm looking for somebody who yells. Like, this is love because this is what I see in my parents, right? So it's about just changing the trajectory of what you've seen, and, what may have worked for your parents may have not worked for you, or may not work for you. So, but putting out positive and showing the positive, right? Again, I'm not going to hide and lie to my daughter about things, because I hated that growing up. Especially like in the Black community, it's kind of like we don't talk about things. A lot of things are swept under the rug, or children need to be in a children's place and stuff like that. And it's like in this new world, there's social media shows everything. YouTube shows everything. Like, kids are more advanced. They're seeing things. And I never wanted my children to feel like they didn't have a voice. Tatum is 7 years old. And for me, she's 7. And in her 7 years, anything that she does that's negative or whatever, she learned that, right? And it reinforces that things are learned behaviors. Like racism isn't, I'm gonna say the majority of people don't wake up racist. They're raised racist. Like, majority of people don't hate people. It's someone was teaching you these things. So again, she's 7 years old. If she has attitude, she probably got that from me. And that also made me want to reflect and change. Like, I don't want her thinking that this is okay. Now, we're human. She gets angry. She told Dani that she stepped on her brother or something like that. Right. But she was so remorseful and apologized for it, right?
Yeah.
And
we've entered the era of the sibling, beef sometimes.
And again, I'm okay with it because, siblings can be, listen, my brother is 7 years older than me, and I was a terror. I was a terror to him, and he got in trouble for me. I would break his stuff and he'll get in trouble, or, but again, I heard those stories and I made sure, and then with Dani being a former teacher, she had students where they were responsible for their siblings. And I don't think that's fair. So if Tatum's watching Trey, because I asked her to, and Trey does something, I'm not going to be like, it was your fault. You should have been she's not the parent. Yeah. Right. So again, it's just those things that I've seen and things that I've wanted to change in my life just to be a better person, a better father, a better husband, even a better friend. Again, when Dani says that I can be an asshole, I know I can be an asshole at times. Right. Or I know that my responses can be harsh or whatever. And that's one of the things that in the last 3 years I've been trying to work on. Right. Because again, if my intention isn't that, then why are people perceiving that? And that's on me. So I got to take accountability for those things and be the change that I want to see. So
yeah.
Sorry, I pulled a Dani right there.
See, you were having such a moment. I just let you have it. I ain't tell you to land a plane, nothing like that. But then you want to take a little
1,000 pardons.
Now it's blinking red. Uh-oh.
I don't know what blinking red means, but
we're going to keep it pushing. So all of what TJ said, and, again, considering all the things that happened, another child enters the picture, work responsibilities for me and him, the, struggles that we were having in our own relationship as husband and wife. And then you talk about Lovers Quarrel and the level of time and effort. We've had live shows, we've had guests who are completely in another stratosphere now at this point in the podcast world and their other adventures and stuff. And we've had all this work and effort put into it. And it just, it was, so now we're talking about what sometimes we weren't, even when we would, and oftentimes it'd be TJ who would bring up Lovers Quarrel, not all the time, but when it would come up, it was him initiating that conversation. And, we had different opinions about it. Do we even come back all together? If we do, what's the timing going to look like? How are we going to be, ensure that we're being consistent? For me personally, I was worried, I had worries about how it's going to impact our relationship, because there were times where we were really in not such a good space. And there were times when we were doing the show, every week and releasing new episodes every week, where sometimes we would walk into, not the booth, but we would walk into the space or sit at the table and be good. And then because of whatever we were talking about after, we would sometimes like be at odds after we were, you know, because we had an argument on the show or we had a different opinion on the show, and like we would leave feeling a type of way. And I'm like, I don't need any additional reasons to have beef with you or have smoke with you, and because that's just not. So that was something that really, like, I know, again, like I said, for me, that came about why we were doing this, or, you know, when we come back to it, and like we kind of touched on previously, how are we going to go about ensuring that this is happening and that, you know, we're not overloading ourselves because there's so many things going on. Because another thing that really kind of like, again, attributed to this hiatus is that, you know, we've referenced our children here and there throughout this conversation, but another big thing too is like, you know, our kids are getting older. When we left off, Tatum was 4. She was just about to start pre-K. Now, baby girl is going into 2nd grade.
Word.
And like, it's wild. Like, we have a 7-year-old, almost 2nd grader, about to be a 2nd grader. And like, now we're dealing with the back to schools and the you know, when your child enters school, like the K through 12 school system, you're now, more than you ever have in the first few years of their life, you are releasing them to the world, right? And you have to deal with all that stuff that comes back home with them every day.
Word.
So TJ and I, you know, she just wrapped up 1st grade this school year. And, you know, we started off the year having to deal with Tatum having a full-on bully and having to like walk her through that and talk her through that, and having parent meetings and reaching out and following and filling out reports and stuff and having these conversations with her, so that way she's understands that, no, you know, for all, you know, on a regular situation, you know, you keep your hands and your feet to yourself, you treat people how you want to be treated. But if somebody's mistreating you and you do, you know, it really, and I mean, as somebody who was bullied pretty badly in elementary school, you know, I have a lot of, you know, it brought up a lot of my own trauma, my own, you know, strong feelings about it. And then you got TJ over here, who was at times in his elementary.
Shout out to my parents. Listen,
yeah, he was perceived as a bully. Not saying that you were, but that you were given that perception.
I was perceived as the bully because I was bigger than everybody.
Yes.
And they used to say, but my parents taught me that if anybody, a boy, a girl, put hands on you, you have every right to defend yourself. And
so that's the conversation we having to have with her. And like, we're trying, like, this is the thing, like, in addition to all these other things we running through, now we are like, we have shifted in this hiatus, the 3 years, from just kind of like parenting in the sense of like keeping them alive, right? Because you're talking about changing diapers and baths and stuff like that. So now we're talking about the social aspect of we got a kid. We don't have a baby anymore. Yeah. She is a kid. And so we have to like navigate those situations as a unit, and as parents, and having those conversations. And so that was another thing. And
that's tough. And I want to touch on that only because it's like, I have a lot of respect for like our parents and what they went through and how they sacrificed and did the things to make sure that we had the best life possible, right? And then now that we are the parents, you know, I go to meetings, I got to go to play dates, and you know, the parents want to meet up and do stuff. So I don't want my child not to be.
I'm in a 1st grade mom group chat now. Like, I'm in a group chat with another bunch of moms or whatever. Yeah. And which also brings into the fact, talking about like what's going on. That one bully aside, which things did get better. So that way, in case anybody's asking, like things got resolved. There was, you know, so she's good. We're good on that front. But like, also, our good sis is still arguably the most popular kid I know I've ever met in my life. Like, she is popping. And so she's got mad friends.
I was popular.
She's more popular than you.
Nah, I mean,
and
she has more reach now, like social media and all that stuff. She is the
mayor.
You know,
she is definitely.
Tim has raised what, over $8,000
for the homeless.
For the homeless, 2 years for her birthday,
and like we have, so her social her social calendar popping is the end of the school year. She had like, it's birthday party after birthday. Like, we had to go to 2 different birthday parties in one day. One's a tea party, one's at like an adventure park. So you're talking about, we got to switch outfits. We got like, it's a whole thing. And then, you know, she wants to do after school clubs, and she wants to, you know, go to the school events and things like that. So she's this active participant, which is amazing. But like, she don't want to miss nothing. She was in the talent show and aftercare, right? Like, she wrote her little friend wrote their own rap song, and we got to be there for those things, right? Like, we're mom and dad, like all this other shit aside. Aside of being
That's
Dani
fair.
TJ and husband and wife, we are mom and dad, and like nothing is going to come before that little girl and that little boy. And but I think, you know, I'll speak for myself, but I think I speak for both of us, is that I don't think we could have still ever like we had an idea, but we still couldn't necessarily prepare for all of the things and the influx of things that come with having like a school-age child. And you know, she's amazing, right? Like she has so and then, you know, she wants to be on the scene. Sis got FOMO hard, real bad. So she don't want to miss nothing. She don't want to be nowhere. And you know, within reason, like we want to, you know, she's invited places. If we can make her, if she can go, if our schedule allows for it, then we'll take her. We'll do those things. So that's another aspect to it, because there's our weekends. There's sometimes our evenings, and then also, like, again, like she's a kid and she's so smart. She's so brilliant. She's so empathetic, but she comes with a lot of big feelings and a lot of, you know, questions.
Like a mother.
Yeah. And sometimes she can be a little reactionary, like her father. And so... I
like how you did that right there. We'll go ahead.
Thank you. So...
You're a jerk.
We're not... Whatever. I'll be that. We're navigating these things, and first and foremost, always trying to be present and responsive and reflective parents with her. And I think TJ kind of touched on it. We talked about how we were like struggling, but like more than anything, we want to make sure that these kids understand that, like, regardless of what goes on between me and him, mommy and daddy are always there for you. We love you. That also, like, mommy and daddy love each other. And that, yeah, sometimes we're not going to agree. Sometimes it's not, you're not going to know. Sometimes you're going to hear it, but you might see some, like, you know, we want to model healthy conflict, but also healthy conflict resolution. And because it's like, you're not going to get along with everybody, even if people you love. And like, we've had these conversations with Tatum as individuals and as a unit around, like, sometimes our own experiences with her and her experiences with us. Just recently, I'm driving her to camp, and she's not a morning person most of the time. She doesn't like, you know, she's cranky in the morning. So the conversation is like, how do you want to be woken up in the morning? Like, that's where we are now in our parenting journey. How do you want to be woken up in the morning? Because clearly this isn't working. I'm trying to be one way with you and sweet and like not trying to like jolt you out your sleep and get, you know, have your nervous system all fucked up, but also like, sis, like, we gotta go.
See, I'm an old school parent. You don't get a choice with that.
So.
But go ahead.
But saying that all to say, like, you know, we have all these things going on. And then, which I think, you know, on top of all of that, like, we've always known that she's like this beautiful, brilliant child or whatever. But then, like, the top of this year, like the end of January, she gets tested. Oh, our good sister's identified as gifted, right? So. That
means that we should be getting some scholarships for school. Exactly. I'm not paying for school, so.
I have to use the bathroom.
It can happen. So
anything
again,
that can go wrong will go wrong.
This shit shut down twice. We left, went to the Venetian, went to Tao, pool party.
It was
trash.
Yeah. But
that's why I was free. But what I am going to tell you, one day in my life, I'm just going to spend all this money just so I can experience all these things that people do, just so I can say I've experienced it. Mm-hmm. And then I'll never have to do it again.
Okay.
Again, we only came to Vegas just so we can do the sneaker thing. That's my real reason for coming here. Outside of that, pool parties and all those other shit.
Be damned.
We could have stayed in Maryland. We could have got a nice hotel room in, what's your place? Owings Mills.
Marriott.
What's the name of it?
Metro Center. And we would have been good. Like, it's a very nice hotel.
Fuck them kids.
Well, but we're here.
I'm always gonna say fuck them kids. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm a big proponent of it. But let's get it. Sorry, so now we're back. So you were talking about Tatum.
Yes, and
then you was about to go into Trey. So on January 31st, we found out that one child was gifted.
And on February 1st, the next day,
we found out that one child was autistic.
Correct. So.
Heartbreaking. But not really. But let's talk about it.
Yeah, so.
Now, hold on real quick. Disclaimer, when I go, I'm going to be a lot of jokes. So don't ban me.
Cancel.
Don't cancel. Don't do any of that stuff. Because how I deal with my son being autistic is going to be different. Not anyone else is going to do it. Disclaimer. Go ahead.
All right. So what had happened was, right? So probably, I'll say from myself, not long after Trey turned 1, I started to kind of have some like, you know, mother's intuition, whatever you want to call it, right? Because when you have more than one kid, right, like you, good, bad, and different, have a point of comparison now, right? So noticing that his like speech, like he was saying words, but he wasn't like as talkative as I remember Tatum being. And one thing's for sure, two things for certain, our son, his ignore game, hella strong. Like you call his name, he was just like, the fuck? Like, who are you, not paying no mind or whatever. So he turned 1 in 2022. And then we get to like early 2023.
Yeah.
Still.
Sorry, I was confused for a moment. Yes.
Yes. So then we get to like early 2023. We start having a conversation about like, again, like his speech. Like we're starting there. And
I feel like it was before that.
But.
At least for me.
What do you mean?
As far as like, yeah, when he turned 1, Logan came when?
September 2022.
So the next year.
Mm-hmm. Logan turned 1 in 2023.
Okay.
So this is our nephew we're talking about.
So you might be right. You might be right.
Thank you. So,
sometimes you're right. Like, you know, as you say, a broken clock is right twice a day.
Yes, I'll be right a lot, but you don't be...
Questionable, but go ahead, whatever.
Okay. The people who are watching this, they know. Y'all know. So, anyway, basically, fast forward. So, after his first birthday, some, you know, things are kind of coming up for me. By the time he's around like 16 months old, so again, like early 2023, we get his, you know, we do a speech assessment. They're showing like, yeah, he's a little bit behind, but I mean, and literally talk to his pediatrician, right? Because he's at the age where he's going like every couple of months for another, appointment.
She's like, it's normal. It's,
you know, boys talk later than girls. And like, you know, for those of you who've been with us for a long time, y'all know, if you know anything about our daughter, like our daughter's a talker. So like, she was kind of like,
she's her mother
and father. And
whoa.
You be talking too.
I talk when I want to talk. Me and Trey are very much alike. Very much. And you and Tatum very much alike. Y'all will talk about anything. The letter A, B, C, D,
so
the sky.
We get his speech evaluated around 16 months or so. And they're still like, you know, it's still, you know, yeah, there's some little like, you know, we're seeing what you're talking about, but it's still kind of early. Like, let's give it another 6 months. So by like summer 2023, around this time last year, we are like, all right, enough is enough. Like, let's respin the block. So he's like,
I feel like it was before that though.
So he started getting all the speech services right around like time he was like 18
that's
months.
when he got the speech services. But I'm saying when he was about 16 months, we made the request. Because I feel like if that was 16 months, that means that Logan was what, 6 months?
Yes.
And Logan was babbling a lot, but Trey wasn't. But then Trey would do some like amazing shit. Like he wasn't talking, but then he was like a man of action.
He's a problem solver because he's always
like his father.
He is very like he can figure anything out basically when it comes to like father. He has his gross motor skills. He gonna climb, he gonna jump, he gonna get what he wants.
He's a man of few words. Honestly, like myself, like your father.
Yeah.
We don't really talk much. We're gonna be in the room. We will observe. We will monitor. We will see if it's something that is our interest. We'll definitely talk.
Yes.
But if it's not, we're just not gonna talk just to talk.
Yes.
We're not gonna be
but
like.
But the things that y'all are interested in,
like you
can't shut y'all up. You right about that.
Right.
So. As
I feel like that was a dig.
It was an observation.
I feel like it was a dig, but go ahead, be great.
And so we get to summer, like again, like August of last year. And that's really when, like this time last year, like early August, we had started reaching out to like the different, basically services and things like that to, in addition to what our pediatrician had recommended to get him reevaluated. And then
let's
also
talk
to see
about that.
Some other options and whatnot. What would you like to add?
I'm saying like the diagnosis thing, like, again, you pray that your children are going to be So when I had Tatum, I'm going to say that all I wanted her to be was healthy. We didn't know her sex, so that is something that mattered. When I was younger, I want a boy. When I had Tatum, I was like, I'm okay if I was a girl dad. I'm still a girl dad, but I'm a girl boy dad, whatever. But saying that to say, like, the things that you don't know, the things that you've never experienced is like, oh, I had no idea that these things were a thing, right? But then going through the process and like Dani said in 2023, we started trying to get him services to see, like, to be diagnosed and everything. And they didn't have availability until like August of 2024.
Yeah, that was the only confirmed autism evaluation appointment that we were able to get. But we had to like kind of rule everything out, right? So they had
we did the hearing test.
We did hearing. We went to the ear, nose, and throat doctor.
He was good.
He started speech services, so we were getting him there because by the time he was around like a year and a half, they were like, okay, yes, we can say that he has some type of like mixed expressive receptive language disorder. We'll start there with that.
But then even with that, it was still kind of very much like, well, he's a boy, and boys don't talk as much as they don't.
They're later talkers.
They're later than girls. So yes. It was that thing, and I'm gonna say that, and I'll probably speak for me and Dani, like, as parents who are active, it was kind of like something is off, but then again, he would do something where it was like, nah, how'd you do that, but you're not talking? One
thing's for sure, too, for certain, Trey knows what the fuck we be saying. He knows, that was the thing. We were never, nobody in our village, nobody, like, it was never a question about, like, he understands what we're talking about. It's just like,
does he care?
Is there a reason why he's not responding to us, or is it like he just don't give a fuck? So
February 1st.
And so
shout out to our your sister, my sister-in-law.
Mm-hmm. So we had, we got him on. So again, for context, like we're doing all these different like things to rule out whatever else. Is there something physiological? Is there something more? We're going and applying to the places that are in our city in Baltimore around like getting him on the wait list and stuff like that. And again, this all happens, the wait list, everything, signing up. We're doing all this in like August and September of last year, and we are on the 2023, and then then all of a sudden that week where
in that January
we get a phone call and it's like,
hey, they
have a cancellation, can you come in day after tomorrow? So
now what
like,
I'm also going to say is, again, this is why I said shout out to my sister-in-law, her sister. Your network is your net worth, right? So again, because our sister knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, because again, when we took him in on February 1st for his evaluation, the nurse or doctor, whoever they were, they literally stated, like, who do you know?
Exactly. Like, how are you able to get this appointment?
How are you able to get him? Like, his thing is in August of this year.
That was a different location, too.
Well, I just remember her. I remember her asking us, like, how are you able to get this appointment? Because you were scheduled for August. That's all I remember. I'm not going to go into details and different locations, and it was in the sky versus the moon. I don't know about any of that. I'm just talking about the fact that sometimes who you know will get you further than what you know. But go ahead.
So so basically, you fast forward, he's going to speech services, he's going, getting speech twice a week or whatever for 30 minutes, and we're seeing a little progress or whatnot, but there's like, we know that there's something more. So they call, they're like, can you come in day after tomorrow? Sure, of course.
Made it work.
So we take him, and it's a like 3 hours, 2.5, 3 hours of like different diagnostics and answering questions and all that stuff like that. And by the end of that appointment, the doctor is like, he meets the criteria for a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, that he's on the, mild to moderate spectrum. Although she did, give a disclaimer that for his age, because at that point he's only like 2, not quite 2.5, that he's still 2.5, like he's still a toddler. So there's things that you can attribute to autism, and there's things that you contribute to his personalities, and there's things you contribute to him just being a toddler. And but he did meet the criteria, and so then now the conversation means like, all right, like what next? And so she gives us different like resources around ABA therapy and all these other things and like places that provide this, because we're now, you know, he's been in daycare, a traditional daycare center for all this time, for the last year and change, and we're like, all right, what do we do now? And I'll never forget like leaving out of that appointment with me, you know, TJ and Trey, and you know, me and TJ, we had to meet there, so we drove separate. And I remember like us hugging each other, and then we got in our different cars and, you know, drove off. And I feel like neither of us at the moment wanted to like break down in front of the other a little bit. So we were just trying to like kind of hold it together. But I think that like I had Trey with me. So, you know, we had TJ called.
But I'm not really a breakdown type of person. I don't think there was nothing to break down. And I'm gonna speak for myself. I can't speak for you. I think for me, it was just like, this is something new. Mm-hmm. I've never experienced it. Now, I do have a cousin who his daughter was diagnosed autistic, but it wasn't, again, when I talked about this earlier, like the family secrets, like it's not the communication of like, yo, this is what it was and this is what it was. Like, you know what I mean? Like, It's always that thing. And you know, I'm a big believer of, when things are different or new, most times it's weird for people, so they don't want to talk about it. It's like a black eye, and you know, maybe subconsciously I felt that way. Like, okay, my son is autistic. What the fuck does that mean? Like, all this other stuff. My immediate thing with Dani was like, all right, well, can I joke? Right? I'm very much like, can I joke through a situation? Like, all right, well,
mechanism.
If he's autistic, like, can I call him Dum Dum now?
I said, fuck no.
And I asked that question, again, we live in Maryland. We're in Baltimore County. We work in Baltimore City. The term dummy is a term of endearment, right? So I said it jokingly, just to cut the mood, because that's who I am. Again, Danielle broke up with me, because again, this is 20 years of us being together. It could have been 21, but she broke up with me because I joked and I told her that I got hit by a bus. For those who remember, for those who don't, we dated prior to 04 and 03. She had an old friend who was messing with my friend, and that's how we got connected. And then her friend and my friend broke up, and then her friend became a hater. But anyway, that's besides the point. Her ex-friend, because they're not friends anymore. But when we broke up, it was because I joked with her. She was like, why are you home or whatever? And I was like, oh, I got hit by a bus. Now, I got hit by a bus. I said that joke because I knew someone from my old neighborhood who, like, for like 4 summers, every summer she got hit by a bus. Now that I'm older, I'm like, did she get hit by a bus because she was getting a check, or did she just get hit by a bus? Like, but again, I knew that somebody can get hit by a bus and survive. So for me, it was just like, oh, this is funny. It's comical. But you know, Dani is like an old person, so for her, it was like,
it just wasn't funny.
Okay, it wasn't funny to you, but other people would have thought it was hilarious.
We'll never know.
And you know why? I science, right? Because she was a science teacher. I do the air quotes because she was a science teacher, but Danielle thinks she's a scientist. But our daughter will think that, Tatum thinks that stuff like that is hilarious. So it just shows like science, like me and her have similar attributes.
Yes.
Whatever.
That's how it works.
Anyway, we'll go ahead.
That's how, you know.
So again, saying all of that to say that I had to joke through it. I definitely had moments where it was like the unknown. It's like I definitely had moments where I cried about it. Actually, I would say that this situation brought me and my father closer. It was definitely some days where I only wanted to speak to him. Now, my mother is my road dog. That's my guy. That's my best friend. That's my first friend, all that. But, my father, as I've gone through this mature stage of growing and understand, I had to understand who my father was. And me and my father are very much alike. Very much. We're like A1, AB, if that makes any sense. What?
You said A1, AB.
A1, AB.
It's like A1, A2?
No, it's like A1, AB. So there's like A1 and then there's I'm confused now.
Okay, then I digress.
I'm saying that like...
Y'all are very similar. You're like 1A, 1B.
1A, 1B. There you go. That sounds better for you?
Yes, because you said A1, AB. It'd be like, first of all, and then you're like, B. So,
that's all right.
So
shout out to the smart one. Yes, so we're very much similar. There's differences, but we're very much similar. But there was times that I needed to speak to my father. And I called him, and he was able to be there. And he may not know it, but it was everything I needed at the time. And it wasn't that, like, again, I say this all the time, like, our kids don't ask to be here. We choose to have children. So, when I had Tatum, seeing her for the first time, watching her, Dani sacrifice her body, her life to bring a child into the world, seeing it, it was perplexing to me to understand how any guy or any parent could not want to be a parent. Like, instant love. I've never seen instant love, but that was instant love. I thought seeing Dani and kind of that was instant love, but it wasn't the same. Like, as soon as I saw Tatum, my heart beat differently, my mind thought differently. Same thing with Trey. So when you have that instant love, like I talk about politics a lot, and in the world that we live in, we have politics in our workplace, we have politics in our relationships, like everything, we kind of play politics. But for me, like I would let my baby mother, and again, I chose right, so I'm good, but I would if Dani wasn't my baby mother, if it was somebody else or someone else, my wife, I would let them dog me out to be the parent I need to be for my kid. Like, I can't understand how any parent, any person don't want to be a part of their child's life. Like, it's not about us. And I tell people that all the time. Like, I didn't start living life until I had kids. Like, I lived, but there was more purpose. Like, Christmas is more fun. Like, holidays are fun. Things are fun because of my children. I want to succeed for them. I want to see them be the best versions of themselves. So, like, having children was like, I don't understand how anybody can be like, I'm not going to be a father because I don't want to have to deal with my baby mother. Nah, fuck that. I'm going to deal with my baby mother however I got to deal with her for that child, because it's bigger. That child is bigger than me, personally. But go ahead.
So we get this information, we process it together and individually, and it's one of the things that I will say, like, my therapy session after Trey's diagnosis was definitely like an emotional one, and it was one of those moments where like like I said, from the time he turned about 1, I had some suspicions, I had some inklings, whatever, but then to now, like, actually have confirmation. And also, let me back up, because we only had a confirmed appointment for one place for August of this year. I was bracing myself for August, and then when all of a sudden you're talking about, I get a phone call, and now it's like day after tomorrow, like this kind of thing of like, I was holding on for August, but now it's February 1st. And while information is key, it was still like, okay, now I'm like having to rally around this stuff, that new information. And it was, when I talked about it in therapy, she gave me the language to describe of like how I don't love my son any different or any less. I don't think that there's anything wrong with him. I don't anything like that. But it's still like, when you have children, you're not planning or counting on some type of, neurodivergence of a certain type, or disability, whatever you want to call it. And you have to kind of like wrap your brain around that. And what she kind of helped me understand was that there's nothing wrong with having a sense of, there is a moment in time where like you're experiencing a little bit of like a sense of mourning, and not because you think that there's anything wrong or there's bad or like that, but the life that you envision for your child or your children is now the path that you thought you were going to be on with this child has been different, has taken a detour.
I think I had a totally different feeling on that.
So I had to kind of like wrap my head around that too, because it was just, and then also I went into kind of like a little bit of like a triage mode. Like, all right, well, if he's got ASD, then what do we need to do? We're researching places and what are the other things and what do we need to do? And I'm like on it. I immediately applied for intimate FMLA because I'm like, I need to make sure if I got to take him to appointments, whatever. We got to just like doing all these things and like a little bit like frantic of sorts, but like just being really, really proactive, because between like just what I know and then also like my background in education, the earlier the intervention, the better. And that's where like I kind of got into go mode and like, this is what we're going to, here's what we're going to do. I'm following up with these people, sending emails, doing all the things. And then also like still being like nothing about him is different, or how I/we/as Village feel about him is different. And we just now have more information. And with more information, you can make more decisions. With a confirmed diagnosis, you can get access to more resources. So that's what we did. And
but see, I think that's also a thing, right? Because again, had we waited until August, he may not progress as well, right? Because again, with autism or any type of things, if you catch it early enough, you can correct it and not
interventions.
Yes, but again, if you wait until they're 4 or 3 or whatever, and what I will say, shout out to Dani and myself for both being kind of like open enough to, because there's a lot of parents who are like, my child's gonna be fine, like because again, you don't want to have to face the reality. Like I said, had no idea what the differences were or what it was. But again, I've always been a believer that these are my children, right? I gotta love them. No one else gotta love them, but I gotta love them. Like if they were gay, if they were trans, if they were anything that people would not appreciate or whatever, I don't care. They gotta know that at our house, they're safe. They can be themselves. They can reflect themselves as however they need to do it, but they don't have to ever hide. And again, Tatum, if you asked her right now, how do you get in trouble for lying? You don't gotta lie. If you don't want to do something, don't do it. Like I remember one time she didn't want to say hi to me, and I confronted her about it, and she was just like, I just didn't want to say hi. I wasn't like angry at her. Like I appreciate that. Like be honest. And then after we had the conversation, then she was like, Daddy, I want to give you a hug now. Nah. Beat it, right? I mean, I want to give her a hug, but I'm just saying, like, at the end of the day, for me, the way that I view it is like, I brought these kids in the world. I got to love them more than anybody else in the world. I got to show them how to be able to thrive in this world, but they got to know that the world may not love you, but in here, you're loved. Be yourself, come as you are, and all that other stuff. And I think that was the thing. My tears and my stress and frustration was more of a I didn't know, and I don't know. So I don't know what to expect or how to interact with it. But never once did I, feel like I did something wrong or my child is a bad child because now they have like something or nah. Yeah. Like no, Trey's fine. Trey's like his mother. He's an asshole.
What?
Yeah, I said it.
Okay.
Trey's like his mother. He's an asshole. Like his father. He's an asshole. I really think that while he may be autistic, I just think Trey just doesn't want to talk.
He definitely.
He's a man of few words. Honestly, he's like your father.
He does remind me of my dad, and what I'll say is this: is that a lot happened, right, during this hiatus, and especially in you're talking about the last year. And I'm happy to report that Trey is thriving, Tatum is thriving, right? And all things considered, like TJ said, all things to the side, like as long as them two are good, everything else is fine. Everything else will figure it out, will be good. And what it has done is that it has, for me, led me to understand that, I always knew that having more than one child meant, you can't raise your kids identically because they're two different people. And they're still two different people, but just in ways that maybe we weren't necessarily expecting out the gate. And the way the way I look at it is like they're both these beautiful, brilliant black children, and they just show up differently in the world. Like when people ask me, oh, what's Tatum and Trey like having them as kids, and I say like, I got the mouth and the muscle. Tatum gonna tell you all day, every day, her thoughts, her feelings. She gonna ask questions. She gonna say what she gotta say. Trey, he is fast, strong, and he is going to achieve a goal by looking at the situation and trying to figure out how to do it himself first and foremost. And then if he can't do it, then he'll get somebody else involved, but he's just not going to say as much. But he still says way more. His language has grown and developed. He's saying more phrases and words. He's getting he's ramping it up every second of every day, and we're working on those things. And it's fascinating, when, once we got his diagnosis in February, we ended up switching him from his traditional daycare to a place where he can kind of get all of his services in one stop shop. And when he knew he had an official start date there, that's when TJ and I sat Tatum down to have that conversation with her, because again, it's our little brother. She loves her little brother. She is a amazing big sister, and she's not dumb. She's gonna know the first time we go to pick him up from someplace other than where we've been going for the last year and change. She's like, why is my brother here? So we had this conversation with her about autism and what that meant, and the way I looked at it and the way we explained it to her was we used the analogy around Oreos, right? And I asked her, I was like, your brother loves Oreos and you love Oreos, right? She's like, yep. And in doing so, I'm like, when you were his age, when you were like 2.5, almost 3, and you wanted Oreos, what did you do? She was like, I would ask somebody to get me some Oreos, or I'd be like, do you like Oreos? I like Oreos. There are Oreos in the cabinet. And so kind of finesse her way into getting what she wanted. And I'm like, well, how does your brother, if he wants Oreos, go get Oreos? She goes, he moves the chair to the cabinet and climbs up and goes and gets it himself. I said, exactly. I said, do y'all both still end up with Oreos? She said, yeah. I said, so that's what autism is. I said, his brain just thinks differently than how another person's brain thinks. I said, but y'all both still kind of get to the end goal in mind, which is the Oreos. I said, you just go about it 2 different ways. And that's just kind of what life has been now, right? Is understanding and meeting him where he is, and celebrating him for who he is and where he is, but also, again, continuing to challenge him and push him along and teach him, and so that way he can continue to have to build on his vocabulary and his communication, because that's where frustration comes from when you can't get your point across. And so we continue to work on that, but it's not anything any parent expects, but I think that we are so blessed to have him as our baby, as our son. I think that he's blessed to have us as his parents, because we got in there. We have an amazing village. Even when we were worried about, or excuse me, I'll speak for myself. When I was worried about just like having the conversations with some people about things, everybody took it so well. Everybody's like, how do we support? How do we help? How do we do this? And we couldn't ask for anything better than that. And now, like, this is when this all comes out, like this drops or whatever, this will be our first time kind of speaking on it publicly, because it's not anything to, like, as far as like socials and stuff, because there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to be ashamed of. And he is a beautiful, brilliant child, as like his sister, and they're just different. And now, there's ways, and sometimes like I appreciate the way sometimes is a man of few words right now, because I remember there was one time, maybe a couple months ago, where it was like TJ was giving me his ass to kiss, Tatum was giving me her ass to kiss. Everybody in the house was like, both of y'all was just like being like.
I'm still trying to listen. Go ahead. But
Trey, since he doesn't say as much, he just kind of cuddled up next to me, had my work phone, and we just sitting there vibing. And I'm like, listen, I appreciate the fact that because you don't say as much, you're not talking to me all types of ways. I'm like, that's my guy. I love him. He's definitely the best Terrence out of the 3.
You're fucking
absolutely
bugging.
The best Terrence out of the 3.
I've always said he can be I'm definitely the best Terrence.
He is already the best Terrence.
Definitely not.
I said what I said.
Erroneous.
Anyway.
Erroneous.
So.
You don't believe that.
As I said.
You don't believe that shit. The best Terrence? He hasn't even fucking lived life yet. He's 3. He's 2. He'll be 3.
And yet he is that exceptional.
That's crazy.
He is just.
I'm definitely the best Terrence.
He's out of here.
He could be number 2. You know what I mean?
He surpasses both y'all.
He's my junior.
3.0.
Nah.
He's out of here.
He got to get some more trainings. I'm definitely the best Terrence.
So.
Definitely the best.
We have.
That's crazy.
Got y'all all the way caught up with, I think, everything from the time we paused to where we are right now at year 20 of being together, and what the future holds for Lovers Quarrel is, we hope to be able to come back, be consistent. It might look a little different.
Is this you speaking from your lens or our lens? I'm just asking because you said we.
I do believe it was a we because we had a conversation of like.
My fault, go ahead. I just inquired, that's all.
And I'm answering.
All right, go.
So having these, continuing to figure out what the new format would look like and our drop time, our schedules and things like that as far as like releasing stuff. But this is still something that is a labor of love for both of us. And
some more than others.
That is true. But I do think that as we have both continued to evolve and learn and grow and be more solidified in who we are and the work that we're doing ourselves as individuals, and then the work that we're also doing in our marriage, that this will become a continued source of joy for us and a place for us to connect, as opposed to the times where it became like another thing to do, or it never became another thing, or a source of contention sometimes for us. And so I'll speak for myself on that part.
Thank you. That's why I gotta ask, right? Like sometimes it's like us, and then it's you, and then it's us, and you.
And so, but as long as we continue to move in the right direction and communicate, right? And
say that again.
Communicate. And so we have to always keep coming back to the table that, we can. This will be something that is a fun, enjoyable thing for both of us, and that we can continue to bring you content, talk to you guys about our lives, what's going on in the world, sometimes quarrels, sometimes love, but that's what it's been. So I don't know about you, I'll speak for myself with this, but I think, we hope that you've stuck it out with us through the technical difficulties and the stories and the tangents and stuff like that, and have a better understanding about what's been going on with Dani and TJ, and that as we start to resume pushing out content, that you will rejoin us and engage with us. And listen, we appreciate y'all for
this is exclusive because she ain't never tell me all this other stuff. So listen, if we're able to make this thing work and make it efficient and everything else, then I think Lovers Quarrel is back. But if not, then, for what it was and our experiences, I think it was amazing. Mm-hmm. Again, 2 live shows, multiple episodes.
Over 100, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mad guests,
and, experience, just 2 kids from New York who tried to figure this thing out. And I think that's the major thing. But I think for Dani and myself, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think for us it's always just been about being able to have the transparency, right? I say all the time, social media is the devil. And, people always try to show you their highlights. They don't show you when they fail. They don't show you when shit is bad and all the other stuff. So I think that was always, at least for me, that was my approach. I want to tell y'all, everyone who was like, oh my God, y'all are high school sweethearts, y'all are amazing. Yeah. We're making it work, but let me show you that this shit is work. Mm-hmm. It's not a job, but it takes work. And every day we're changing, and every day we're growing, and every day we're trying to figure it out. And we're taking 2 individuals to make them one, and that's when the politics play. Am I gonna argue with Dani tonight? Because if I do, I may not get some intimacy. Right? Right? And so again, the politics is going to be like, you know what? Hold your tongue. She's wrong, but don't tell her she's wrong, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to get some cat later. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You've never said the same thing? This TJ is wrong, but I'm not going to say anything because it's going to just ruin the rest of the day. So
all the time.
All the time? That's crazy.
All the time.
That's what's up. I respect it.
I'll be like, you know what? Okay. Because I don't want to have to hear it later. But
anyway,
we've been rocking and rolling and going through it together, but coming out on the other side of it together. So I think with that, this has been a status update. I won't call it an episode of Lovers Quarrel. As always, I'm your girl Dani.
I'm your guy TJ.
And you know that we fuss.
We fight, but we love.
Bye.
Bye. Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.